The galaxy changed forever when humans stopped being nice. From the smallest outposts to the grandest interstellar councils, humans were known for helping, for listening, and for never saying no. Alien species often relied on them, sometimes too much, because humans would always step in to solve problems, even when it was inconvenient. They were patient, polite, and endlessly forgiving. Alex Carter had grown up hearing stories of this. His grandmother often told him how humans had once calmed a civil war between two planets by simply mediating discussions without asking for anything in return. Alex had never seen humans act differently. He worked as an envoy, moving from planet to planet, always offering help, always smiling, always calm. He liked helping. He liked seeing other species happy. He thought this was what humans were meant to do. On the planet Zyril, Alex had just finished helping a group of traders with their cargo logistics. Lily Morris, a cultural analyst who traveled with him, watched quietly as humans loaded heavy containers that other species refused to touch. Lily had a mind for observation, and she had begun to notice something troubling. While humans were busy helping, other species were taking advantage. Small favors turned into expectations, and expectations turned into demands. The aliens didn't see humans as equal partners anymore. They saw them as a tool. "Alex," Lily said one evening as they watched the twin suns set over the city of Zyril, "do you notice that no one here thanks us anymore?" Alex frowned. "They thanked us this morning," he said, trying to sound calm. Lily shook her head. "A formality, it's empty. They don't treat our words or actions as meaningful. They assume we will just keep helping." Alex didn't want to believe it. He had always trusted that kindness was its own reward. Helping others made life worth living. But as he watched Zyril's citizens move past humans without a single word of real gratitude, he felt a tiny knot of worry in his chest. The next morning, the Trading Council summoned Alex and Lily. The council consisted of 3 alien representatives, each more intimidating than the last. They were sleek and metallic, with voices that rattled the air. "Humans," the tallest of them said, "your services have been most helpful. The council requires that you take over the supply coordination for the next 6 cycles. Your people are the only ones capable of handling it efficiently." Alex's eyebrows rose. 6 cycles? That's expected, the alien interrupted. "We rely on your efficiency. It is understood that your kind does not refuse." Alex and Lily exchanged a glance. "We usually help," Alex said carefully, "but 6 cycles is a lot. Maybe we could arrange a shared system so others can assist." The council hummed as if confused. "Assist? That is unnecessary. Humans do not refuse. Humans have never refused." Alex realized then that Lily was right. Humans were no longer treated as individuals with limits or needs. They were tools, and the galaxy had forgotten how to see them as equals. Over the next few weeks, Alex and Lily worked harder than ever. They adjusted supply routes, repaired broken ships, and negotiated conflicts between traders. Every day, humans did what they had always done. They were patient, helpful, and polite. But every day, the gratitude faded. It was replaced with assumptions, with laziness, with entitlement. One night, Alex stood on the observation deck of their starship, looking at the swirl of stars stretching across space. Lily joined him, carrying 2 cups of warm tea. She handed one to him without a word. "You know," she said quietly, "I used to think humans were the nicest species because of how they acted. Now I think they are nice because no one expects them to stop." Alex took a sip, the warmth filling his hands. He didn't answer at first. Then he said, "Maybe it's time to stop." Lily looked at him sharply. "Stop? You mean refuse to help?" Alex nodded. "Just for a little while, to see if anyone notices, to see if anyone cares about us as people, not just helpers." Lily smiled, a small, relieved smile. "Finally." "I thought I was the only one who noticed." The next morning, Alex tried something small. A cargo pod was jammed in the docking bay, a problem that usually took him an hour to fix. Instead of immediately going to work, he stepped back. He watched the aliens struggle. They grumbled, bickered, and eventually called for assistance from another species. Alex felt no rush to intervene. Hours passed. The council members were frustrated. Traders were angry. For the first time, humans were not solving their problems. And for the first time, the aliens realized just how much they had relied on human kindness. But humans were not cruel. They were still polite, still careful not to hurt feelings. They simply began setting limits, saying no when it was reasonable and asking for consideration in return. Lily documented everything. She knew this moment was historic, though it was quiet and subtle. Back on the ship, Alex spoke to the crew. "We are not abandoning anyone," he said firmly. "We are simply teaching that kindness has boundaries. We cannot fix everything everywhere for everyone without being seen as people too." The crew nodded. They had long understood that human patience was being stretched too thin. For the first time, they felt a sense of control over their own lives. The galaxy had expected humans to be endlessly accommodating, but humans were learning that true kindness did not mean endless sacrifice. As the news spread across nearby systems, reactions were mixed. Some species were confused, unable to understand why humans were suddenly setting limits. Others were angry, seeing human hesitation as disobedience. Still others were quietly relieved, realizing they could no longer take advantage of generosity without consequence. During a council meeting on the neighboring planet of Lura, Alex and Lily presented their new principles. They explained that humans would still help, but only when it was fair, reasonable, and respectful. Every request would now have conditions, and humans expected those conditions to be honored. The alien delegates were stunned. "Conditions?" one asked. "Humans do not have conditions. Humans do not refuse. Humans only give." Alex smiled politely. "Things change," he said. "Even kindness changes when it is ignored or abused." As the meeting ended, Lily whispered to Alex, "This is only the beginning. We are showing the galaxy a different kind of human, a human who is strong, respected, and still kind, but not invisible." Alex felt a mix of hope and anxiety. The path ahead was uncertain. The galaxy was used to humans being nice without question, and change would not be easy. But he also knew that boundaries did not make someone cruel, they made them human. Over the next few cycles, reports came in from other systems. Humans were refusing minor favors, asking for shared responsibility, and teaching other species to solve their own problems. The galaxy groaned and stumbled as it adjusted. Trade slowed, minor disputes became more complicated, and slowly, aliens began to see humans as equals for the first time. For Alex and Lily, the work was not glamorous. It was tiring, frustrating, and often thankless. But it was satisfying in a deeper way. Humans were not giving up kindness. They were claiming respect, something that had been denied for too long. In quiet moments, Alex would look at the stars and think about how small actions could change everything. Being nice had once been human strength, but it had also been their weakness. Now, humans were learning that kindness without boundaries was not kindness at all. It was invisibility. And so, in the calm of space, as humans paused and set limits, the galaxy began to feel the first tremors of change. No one shouted, no one fought. There was only the quiet realization that humans, the species that had always been nice, would no longer be invisible. It was subtle, almost gentle, but it was the beginning of a shift that would one day change the galaxy forever. And for Alex Carter, watching the stars in silence, that was more exciting than any adventure he had ever known. After humans began setting limits, the galaxy reacted in ways no one had expected. At first, it was quiet. Humans simply refused small requests, asked for shared responsibilities, and insisted on fairness. But the ripple grew quickly. Aliens who had relied on human patience for decades were suddenly faced with a world where humans would not always fix their problems. Alex Carter and Lily Morris watched these changes closely from their ship, moving between systems to observe the reactions. Traders, council members, and even ordinary citizens were noticing the difference. For years, humans had been invisible helpers, quietly solving issues without complaint. Now, humans were asserting themselves, and the effect was astonishing. On the planet Corvin, Alex observed a scene he could hardly believe. A group of alien merchants struggled to unload a cargo ship, arguing loudly as crates fell to the ground. Normally, Alex and his team would have jumped in immediately, rearranging the cargo and calming tempers. This time, he simply stood back, watching. Lily stood beside him, notebook in hand. "Look at them," she whispered. "They've never had to work together before." Alex nodded. He felt a strange mix of amusement and concern. The merchants were struggling, but there was a sense of learning. For the first time, they had to rely on each other instead of humans. Some crates were dropped, some goods damaged, but slowly the merchants began to coordinate. One alien began lifting crates while another organized the storage. No humans were involved, and yet the problem was starting to resolve. "It feels strange," Alex said. "I want to help, but we can't, not yet." Exactly, Lily said. This is what they need. They've taken our help for granted for too long. Across the galaxy, similar situations were unfolding. Humans were no longer invisible. Species that had assumed humans would always say yes were beginning to panic. Some demanded answers, others grumbled and complained, but humans remained calm, polite, and firm. They explained that kindness was still part of who they were, but respect and fairness were now equally important. On the council planet of Lorana, human envoys attended a meeting that quickly became tense. Several alien delegates argued that humans were being selfish. One large reptilian representative slammed a claw on the table. "Your species has always been reliable. You cannot refuse us now." Alex remained calm, speaking slowly and clearly. "We are still reliable," he said. "We still want to help. But we cannot do everything for everyone without cooperation. Fairness is not selfishness, it is respect." A murmur ran through the room. Another delegate, a small, glowing creature, spoke hesitantly. "But if humans refuse, what will we do? We are not capable of solving this ourselves." "Then it is time to learn," Alex said. "We have been helping for too long. You must now take responsibility for your own systems." Lily watched carefully. She could see the subtle shock on every delegate's face. For the first time, humans were not silent, invisible helpers. They were participants with limits, expectations, and authority. The galaxy had never seen humans like this. Back on their ship, Alex and Lily reviewed reports from other sectors. Delays in trade, minor disputes, and confusion were happening everywhere. Humans were no longer silently correcting mistakes or covering for laziness. At first, some humans worried about being seen as harsh or rude. But as they observed the results, they understood that firmness did not mean cruelty. It meant balance. In one sector, a dispute arose between two planets over water resources. Humans had always mediated, making compromises that left both sides marginally satisfied. This time, humans stepped back. Representatives from each planet were forced to negotiate directly. The talks were difficult, filled with arguments and frustration, but slowly the planets reached an agreement themselves. "See," Lily said, "they are capable. Humans didn't make this for them. They made it themselves." Alex nodded, feeling a sense of pride. The galaxy was learning a lesson that humans had known all along. Kindness without boundaries often goes unnoticed, and true respect comes when limits are acknowledged. Not all reactions were positive. Some species became openly hostile. A group of smugglers on the edges of human-influenced space attempted to provoke humans into helping them without conditions. They sabotaged ships, sent false distress signals, and even tried to ambush convoys. For decades, humans would have rushed in, repairing damage and rescuing crews. This time, they refused. Nora King, a human policy architect, coordinated responses from the command center. "We will not be manipulated," she said firmly. "We will offer help only when it is fair and requested appropriately. Anyone attempting to exploit our goodwill will not succeed." The smugglers were furious. They had never experienced resistance from humans before. Slowly, they realized that intimidation no longer worked. Humans were patient, but they were no longer easy targets. The galaxy had learned a quiet truth. Being nice does not mean being weak. In the midst of these changes, humans also discovered unexpected benefits. Kyle Brown, a systems engineer, noted that workloads were now more balanced. Humans were no longer taking on endless tasks for other species, freeing them to innovate, explore, and focus on their own communities. Human colonies became more efficient, more organized, and more respected. Lily wrote detailed notes on every incident. She realized that history was being made, quietly but profoundly. For centuries, humans had been admired for their kindness, but now they were being respected for their strength. The galaxy had learned to pay attention to human boundaries, and that attention brought lasting change. One evening, Alex and Lily visited the trading hub on planet Zyril again. Humans were helping, but only when conditions were met. Traders grumbled, yes, but they were learning. A young alien merchant approached Alex nervously. "Sir," he said, "we need help, but we understand if there are limits." Alex smiled. "We can help, but you must follow our guidelines. We will teach you, not do it for you." The merchant nodded, a look of relief mixed with determination on his face. He realized that help came with respect, and he began to organize his team. Humans watched, satisfied but not interfering. The aliens were solving problems themselves. As news of these changes spread, reactions varied across the galaxy. Some species resisted, angry at the shift in power. Others embraced it, relieved that humans would no longer quietly shoulder burdens that weren't theirs. Some quietly admired the patience and firmness of humans, realizing that true kindness had weight. Alex and Lily discussed the long-term effects. "This is only the beginning," Lily said. "Once the galaxy adapts, everything will be different. Humans will still be kind, but they will be impossible to ignore." Alex agreed. "It is strange," he said. "We are not fighting anyone. No one is angry at us directly, yet everything is changing. The galaxy is learning a lesson without a single battle." The months passed, and humans continued to maintain this delicate balance. They were polite but firm, patient but assertive. Across star systems, species began to change their behavior. Negotiations became more respectful. Trade became more balanced. Disputes required cooperation instead of expecting human intervention. Lily watched the subtle transformations with fascination. She realized that humans, by refusing to be endlessly exploited, were teaching the galaxy a new kind of diplomacy. "Kindness without boundaries," she wrote, "is not weakness. It is strength disguised as generosity." On the observation deck of their ship, Alex looked out at the stars. He thought about the ripple effect humans had caused without raising weapons or threatening anyone. The galaxy was adjusting. Systems were realigning. Species were learning to respect each other, and humans had taught the most important lesson of all, that being nice does not mean being invisible. As Alex sipped his tea, Lily joined him, smiling. "We've started something," she said. "Something quiet but permanent." Alex nodded. "And it is only the beginning. Humans will remain kind, but the galaxy will never take them for granted again." They watched in silence as a distant star exploded in a bright flare, a reminder that even small changes could have enormous consequences. The galaxy, for better or worse, was learning that human kindness had limits, and those limits would forever reshape its future. Humans were no longer invisible. They were no longer endlessly taken for granted. And slowly, the galaxy began to realize that the species it had relied on for centuries was now asserting its presence, quietly but firmly, and nothing would ever be the same. The shift was subtle, patient, and steady, but its effects were undeniable. Across countless planets, species adjusted, sometimes reluctantly, sometimes gratefully, to a new reality. Humans were kind, but humans were no longer naive. And in that quiet change, a new era of respect and equality began to take root. Humans had changed the way the galaxy worked. At first, other species were confused. Then they were angry. Now, months into the new era, the consequences were becoming impossible to ignore. Humans were no longer invisible helpers. They were setting rules, refusing unreasonable requests, and insisting on fairness. The galaxy was wobbling, and everyone felt it. Alex Carter sat in the command room of the human fleet, watching reports from multiple sectors. Lily Morris stood beside him, holding a tablet filled with messages from trading hubs, planetary councils, and independent colonies. The news was both fascinating and alarming. "Look at this," Lily said, pointing to a cluster of reports. Zyril, Corvin, and Lorana all report slowdowns in trade. Disputes are escalating. Some systems are refusing to work together because humans won't intervene automatically. Alex frowned. "That was expected," he said. "We knew the galaxy would struggle at first. They've relied on humans for centuries. Now they have to adapt." "Adapt or collapse," Lily added. "And some systems are closer to collapse than they realize." In one sector, two planets had been arguing over the rights to a rare mineral. Humans had always stepped in to mediate these conflicts, creating compromises that kept the peace. This time, humans refused to intervene until both planets showed willingness to cooperate. For weeks, the arguments escalated. Shipments were blocked, trade routes closed, and tensions ran high. Alex and Lily observed the situation carefully. "This is uncomfortable," Alex said, "but necessary. They need to learn to solve problems themselves." "Yes," Lily agreed. "But some species will try to blame humans for the chaos. They don't understand that we are giving them responsibility, not punishment." In another sector, smugglers and pirates attempted to exploit human restraint. They sabotaged shipments and sent false distress signals, hoping humans would rush in to save them. Instead, human fleets responded carefully. They secured the area, ensured no lives were lost, and left the criminals to face the consequences of their actions. The smugglers were furious. For the first time, humans were not predictable, not automatically helpful, and not afraid to let others face the results of their choices. On the planet Lorana, Alex met with council members who were desperate and confused. They argued, complained, and even threatened, but humans stayed firm. Alex spoke calmly, explaining that compromise required effort from all sides, not just humans. He reminded them that humans still valued peace and cooperation, but they would no longer do all the work alone. "You cannot make us solve this for you?" one alien delegate asked, frustration clear in their voice. "No," Alex replied. "You must try yourselves. We will help if you ask properly and if you are willing to cooperate. This is the only way fairness can exist." The delegates glared but had no choice. Humans were consistent, patient, and polite, yet unyielding. It was a new experience for the galaxy. Back on the human fleet, Nora King coordinated resource management. Humans were still helping when it was reasonable, but boundaries were enforced. Every request had to be fair, every responsibility shared. Alien leaders were learning quickly that manipulation no longer worked. Humans were patient, but patience had a limit, and that limit was now clear. "They're realizing we are serious," Nora said to Alex. "Some systems are panicking. They don't know how to operate without us intervening." Alex nodded. "And that panic is good. It forces them to think. To work together, to respect us and each other." In one remote sector, a young alien named Reno struggled to manage a failing colony. Humans had once fixed everything for him, but now they refused. He tried desperately to call for help, but the humans only offered guidance, insisting he take responsibility. Reno was frustrated and overwhelmed, but slowly he began organizing his people, delegating tasks, and solving problems he had never faced before. It was difficult but rewarding. He learned that humans were not enemies, they were teachers of fairness. Elsewhere on the planet Corvin, Alex observed a group of alien traders attempting to repair a broken cargo system. Humans had helped with this system for decades. Now humans refused to intervene automatically. The traders argued, shouted, and even fought briefly, but eventually they worked together to fix the problem. They were slow, clumsy, and exhausted, but the system began functioning again. Humans did not step in, but they watched from a distance, satisfied. Lily wrote in her notes, "Humans are teaching the galaxy the most important lesson. Cooperation cannot rely on one species alone. Fairness requires participation. Kindness must have boundaries to be respected." Not all humans were comfortable with this change. Some envoys worried that the galaxy might view them as harsh or cruel. Alex met with the fleet crew to reassure them. "We are not being cruel," he said. "We are being responsible. Patience is still kindness, but only when it is respected. If we continue without limits, we are invisible again." The crew nodded. They had already seen the difference. Humans were no longer taken for granted. Their respect was returning slowly but steadily. As weeks passed, the galaxy experienced growing pains. Trade slowed, disputes grew, and some systems even faced small crises. Humans continued to assist, but only when conditions were met. This approach caused discomfort, but it also forced growth. Alien species began to solve problems themselves, negotiate fairly, and plan more carefully. They learned the value of responsibility. On the planet Lorana, a council meeting erupted into heated arguments when humans refused to mediate a dispute over mineral rights. Delegates argued, cursed, and even accused humans of selfishness. Alex and Lily observed quietly, speaking only when necessary. Slowly, the delegates realized that resolution required their own effort. Eventually, they compromised, creating a plan that humans would approve only because it was fair. "Finally," Lily said softly. "They are learning," Alex agreed. "But it is slow and it is uncomfortable for them. Discomfort is part of learning." In the outskirts of human space, smugglers became more desperate. They tried every trick to manipulate humans, but nothing worked. The humans responded with calm authority, maintaining safety and fairness. The galaxy began to understand that kindness without limits was no longer possible. Humans had changed the rules. Even young humans were learning this new approach. Cadets in training were taught to be polite, patient, and cooperative, but also firm, clear, and assertive. They learned that saying no did not make them cruel, it made them human. They learned that fairness required boundaries and that true respect came from strength, not endless compliance. Lily documented everything. She knew history was being written quietly but profoundly. Humans had not raised weapons, had not started a war, and had not shouted. They had simply refused to be invisible. The galaxy, slowly but surely, was beginning to see humans as equals, not just helpers. In the command room of the human fleet, Alex reviewed reports of systems slowly adapting. Some were resisting, others were cooperating, but all were realizing the new reality. He looked at Lily and smiled faintly. "This is bigger than I imagined," he said. "We are changing the galaxy without a single battle." "And that is the point," Lily replied. "Humans do not need to fight to teach lessons. Patience, firmness, and fairness are more powerful than weapons." Across star systems, the effects continued. Planets that had relied on humans for governance, trade, and crisis management began taking responsibility. Systems slowly rebuilt their own structures, negotiated conflicts, and organized resources. Humans were still helpful, but only when respect and fairness were involved. The galaxy was learning that the humans who had once been endlessly nice were now a species with strength, boundaries, and dignity. Kindness no longer meant invisibility. Patience no longer meant weakness. Alex and Lily traveled between worlds, observing progress, documenting struggles, and offering guidance when requested. They saw hope, frustration, and growth. The galaxy was changing, and humans were at the center of that change, not through force but through principle. One evening, Alex looked out at a distant star cluster, thinking of how far humans had come. "We are patient but firm," he said to Lily. "We are kind but not blind. The galaxy will never take us for granted again." Lily nodded. "And that is only the beginning. Systems will continue to struggle, but eventually they will learn. And when they do, humans will be respected everywhere, not just admired for kindness, but for strength." As the stars shimmered outside the ship's windows, Alex and Lily felt a sense of quiet triumph. The galaxy was uncomfortable, even chaotic in places, but it was learning. Humans were no longer the species everyone relied on blindly. They were participants, leaders, and teachers. The lesson was clear: kindness without boundaries is not true kindness. Respect and fairness must accompany generosity, or it is wasted. And so, the galaxy shifted, quietly but surely. Humans were changing everything, not by fighting, not by demanding, but by refusing to be taken for granted. Slowly, systems adapted, aliens learned cooperation, and humans discovered a new kind of strength in their kindness. The ripple would continue, reaching every corner of the galaxy. Humans had started something that could not be undone. They had shown that patience and generosity were powerful, but only when accompanied by boundaries. And in that quiet revolution, the galaxy would never forget the humans who finally refused to be invisible. The galaxy was changing, and the effects were becoming clear everywhere. Humans were still kind, still patient, but no longer invisible. Boundaries had been set, and the ripple of those boundaries reached even the farthest star systems. Trade routes slowed, alliances wavered, and disputes that had been easy for humans to resolve suddenly became complex and difficult. Alex Carter observed reports from multiple planets. Lily Morris stood beside him, scanning data feeds, her brow furrowed in concern and fascination. The galaxy was learning to cope, and the lessons were not easy. "Look at this," Lily said, pointing to a cluster of alerts. "The Corvin system has delayed shipments of critical supplies because humans no longer cover for other species' mistakes. Entire colonies are struggling to manage on their own." Alex nodded. "It will be painful at first, but it is necessary. The galaxy has relied on humans too long. Now other species must step up." In the trading hubs, humans were still providing help, but only under fair conditions. This caused frustration for some, but also relief for others who had been quietly overburdened by relying on human generosity. Slowly, patterns were changing. Species that had never cooperated before began to talk, plan, and negotiate without depending on humans to solve every problem. On the planet Lorana, council meetings became intense. Delegates argued over trade agreements, resource sharing, and security. Humans attended, but they no longer imposed solutions. They listened, guided, and intervened only when all parties agreed to fairness. Alex spoke calmly. "We are here to help, but only if every species involved is willing to cooperate and respect the process." A reptilian delegate growled, frustration evident in his voice. This is chaos. Humans have always fixed these problems. Why do you refuse now? Because it is time for all of you to take responsibility, Alex replied. We will guide, but we will not do it for you. Fairness requires effort from everyone, not just humans. Lily wrote in her notebook, noting how even small refusals were producing enormous changes. Species were no longer passive. They were forced to negotiate, compromise, and plan. It was difficult, uncomfortable, but necessary. Humans had created a new standard. Kindness had limits, and those limits demanded respect. Further away in the Corvin system, humans were overseeing trade routes. Normally, they had ensured every shipment arrived on time, repairing mistakes and covering for delays. Now, humans monitored, advised, and left responsibility to the species involved. Cargo shipments were delayed, goods damaged, and disputes arose. But slowly, solutions began to emerge from the aliens themselves. They learned to organize, communicate, and cooperate. Humans only stepped in to ensure fairness was maintained, not to fix every problem. Kyle Brown, a human systems engineer, explained the benefits to the fleet. This is what efficiency should look like, he said. Humans are still helping, but not being exploited. Species are learning to manage on their own. It is slower, yes, but sustainable. Nora King, coordinating policy across sectors, added, and humans are finally free to innovate and explore. No longer trapped fixing everyone else's problems, they can focus on themselves as well as teaching respect and cooperation. Even young humans were learning the power of this approach. Cadets in training practiced patience, firmness, and fairness. They learned that refusing unreasonable requests was not cruelty, but strength. They learned that true respect was earned through boundaries and consistency, not endless accommodation. In the outer colonies, some species resisted the change. Smugglers, pirates, and opportunistic traders tried to manipulate humans, hoping old patterns of blind compliance would continue. They failed. Humans responded calmly, firmly, and always fairly. The galaxy began to understand that intimidation no longer worked. Humans were patient, yes, but they were not naive. On Zyril, Alex watched a small colony struggling with water distribution. Humans had always solved these problems automatically. Now the humans present required that the colony organize itself and propose a solution before any assistance was given. The colonists complained, argued, and even panicked, but eventually they found a way to manage. Humans helped only in minor ways, ensuring fairness, not taking control. Lily took careful notes. This is what true leadership looks like, she said. Humans are still kind, but they are teaching responsibility. The galaxy is learning without battles or violence. On Lorana, trade negotiations took longer than ever before. Humans did not dictate solutions. They asked questions, enforced rules, and refused to accept unfair agreements. Delegates were frustrated at first, but gradually they began to cooperate. Compromises were reached that benefited all parties. Humans were no longer the automatic problem solvers. They were guides, respected and listened to. Alex reflected on the subtle power of this change. Patience, fairness, and kindness, when combined with clear boundaries, had more effect than any war or threat ever could. The galaxy was learning, slowly but surely, to respect humans as equals. In remote sectors, reports showed unexpected benefits. Species that had relied on humans for safety and management were developing skills, organization, and teamwork. Young leaders emerged, trained by necessity to think critically and negotiate fairly. Humans were still involved, but only as teachers, not doers. Lily smiled. Look at them, they are growing. Humans aren't doing everything anymore, but the galaxy is stronger because of it. Alex nodded. Sometimes the most powerful lessons are the quietest. No weapons, no threats, just principle and patience. Humans are showing the galaxy a new way to survive and cooperate. As the weeks passed, the galaxy adapted. Trade resumed under fair conditions, conflicts were negotiated, and disputes required cooperation instead of assuming human intervention. Species learned that fairness required effort from all, and that humans would no longer accept being treated as tools. Back on their ship, Alex and Lily monitored distant systems. Even in sectors where resistance was strongest, humans' consistent, firm approach was beginning to take effect. Smugglers were deterred, colonies learned self-management, and councils slowly adopted fairer, more balanced systems. We are seeing the beginnings of real change, Alex said. The galaxy will never be the same. And it won't need to be, Lily replied. Humans are not abandoning kindness, they are strengthening it. By refusing to be exploited, they are teaching everyone else responsibility, respect, and fairness. On a distant planet, a young alien trader named Reno finally succeeded in resolving a logistics problem without human intervention. He had been frustrated, overwhelmed, and angry at first. But after weeks of effort, he realized he could organize his team, negotiate solutions, and achieve success. Humans had guided him only minimally, ensuring fairness. He looked at the humans with a mix of gratitude and newfound respect. "You've taught us to manage ourselves," he said quietly. "We appreciate it." Humans smiled politely. "We are still helping," Alex said, "but only when respect and fairness are part of the process." Slowly, across countless worlds, the same pattern emerged. Species became more self-reliant. Disputes were negotiated with effort from all sides. Trade was balanced. Colonies managed their own resources. Humans were still present, still kind, still patient, but no longer taken for granted. Lily reflected on the significance. Humans are teaching the galaxy the hardest lesson, that patience and kindness have value, but only when they are respected. Boundaries are not weakness. They are strength. Alex watched the stars, thinking about the journey. For centuries, humans had been admired for being endlessly nice. Now they were respected for their strength, fairness, and leadership. The galaxy had learned a quiet but powerful truth. Generosity must be accompanied by limits to be meaningful. As night fell over the human fleet, the crew gathered in the common room. They spoke quietly about the changes they had seen, the struggles of other species, and the small victories that marked progress. No one celebrated with fireworks or fanfare, but there was a sense of accomplishment, deep and steady. "We are making a difference," Alex said softly. "Not by fighting, not by demanding, but by refusing to be invisible. The galaxy is learning to respect kindness that has boundaries." "And it is working," Lily added. "Systems are stabilizing, species are cooperating. The galaxy is becoming stronger because humans refuse to be taken for granted." Across space, stars shimmered like quiet witnesses. The galaxy was changing, slowly and steadily. Humans were no longer just helpers. They were teachers, leaders, and participants. Kindness was no longer weakness. Patience was no longer exploited, and boundaries had become the foundation of respect. In every star system humans visited, lessons were being learned. Trade was more balanced. Disputes required cooperation. Colonies organized themselves. Species understood that humans would help, but only under fair conditions. The galaxy was growing stronger, not weaker, because humans had stopped being endlessly accommodating. And in that quiet revolution, Alex and Lily understood that the change was permanent. Humans were still kind, still patient, still generous, but now they were impossible to ignore. The galaxy would never take them for granted again. Humans had reshaped the universe without a single war, without a single threat. Patience, firmness, and fairness had created a ripple effect felt in every system. The galaxy was learning to respect humans, not just for their kindness, but for their strength, wisdom, and principles. It was subtle, slow, and often uncomfortable, but it worked. The galaxy was stronger. Humans were respected, and the quiet revolution of fairness and boundaries was only just beginning. Years had passed since humans first decided to set boundaries. Patience, fairness, and kindness had replaced blind compliance. The galaxy had changed, slowly but permanently. Humans were no longer invisible helpers. They were leaders, teachers, and respected participants. Every species had learned that kindness without limits was not kindness at all. Alex Carter walked across the command deck of the human fleet, observing activity. Young envoys practiced negotiations, engineers monitored systems, and cadets reviewed strategy. Humans were still kind, still patient, but there was now a quiet strength in every action they took. Lily Morris stood beside him, recording observations in her notebook. She had followed this transformation from the beginning and knew history was being written. "The galaxy is finally noticing us," Alex said. "Not just our help, but our presence. They see humans as equals now, not just tools. And they respect us," Lily added. "We have taught the most important lesson: kindness without respect is meaningless. Boundaries give strength to generosity." Across star systems, the effects were profound. Trade routes were efficient, disputes were negotiated with care, and alliances were stable. Species that had once relied entirely on humans now solved problems independently. Humans assisted only when fairness was requested and honored. The galaxy had learned to cooperate, and humans had guided the process without force, without threats, and without anger. On the planet Lorana, council meetings had transformed. Delegates from multiple species worked together in ways that had once been impossible. They no longer expected humans to mediate every conflict. Instead, humans observed, advised when requested, and enforced fairness. Progress was slower than it had been when humans intervened automatically, but it was lasting and balanced. Alex met with a group of young delegates who had never worked with humans before. They were nervous, uncertain, and respectful. One of them, a small, glowing alien, asked, "How can humans remain kind and firm at the same time?" Alex smiled. "Kindness is a choice, but firmness is respect. We help because it is right, not because we are expected to. Boundaries do not make us cruel, they make us human." Lily noted the response. "This is the moment where humans are teaching the galaxy morality and strength together." It is subtle but permanent. In distant colonies, human fleets monitored resource distribution. Humans no longer fixed every problem automatically. They required cooperation, planning, and fairness. Colonies organized themselves, delegated tasks, and solved disputes internally. Humans provided guidance only when requested and when all parties agreed to be fair. The results were transformative. Communities thrived, systems stabilized, and alien leaders began to understand the value of shared responsibility. Even the smugglers and opportunistic traders had changed. Those who had once relied on manipulation found that intimidation no longer worked. Humans responded calmly, firmly, and with fairness. Slowly, the galaxy realized that humans were patient, yes, but no longer exploitable. The quiet strength of consistency reshaped behavior faster than any threats ever could. On Zyril, a colony that had once depended entirely on humans managed a crisis on its own. Water supplies had been disrupted, food shipments delayed, and tempers flaring. Humans were present only to monitor and ensure fairness. The colonists argued, organized, and worked together, learning leadership, teamwork, and planning. When the crisis ended successfully, the colonists realized that humans had not abandoned them. They had taught them to manage themselves. "Thank you," said the colony leader, a young reptilian female, "for letting us learn to take responsibility." "Your guidance was enough, but you did not do it for us." Alex smiled politely. "We are still here to help," he said, "but help is most meaningful when it is earned through respect and cooperation." Lily wrote in her notebook. Humans have changed the galaxy not with force, but with principle. Fairness and boundaries have reshaped relationships, trade, and leadership. Across multiple systems, young leaders emerged. Aliens who had never faced responsibility before were now organizing logistics, negotiating disputes, and planning resources. Humans had taught them patience, firmness, and cooperation, creating a galaxy that could function without relying solely on human intervention. In the command center, Nora King addressed a team of cadets. "Remember," she said, "being nice is important, but so is being respected. Patience is a strength, and boundaries give that strength meaning. Humans are kind, but we must also be seen, heard, and valued." The cadets nodded. They were learning the quiet power of firmness combined with generosity. The galaxy had finally adjusted. Humans were no longer invisible. They were respected for both their kindness and their strength. Alex and Lily observed the results with quiet pride. Systems were stable, disputes were resolved fairly, trade was balanced, and humans had accomplished this without raising weapons, without demanding obedience, and without anger. The ripple of patient, principled action had transformed the galaxy. In one small sector, a young alien trader named Reno reflected on the changes. He had once relied entirely on human assistance, but now he had solved problems independently. He had negotiated agreements, organized teams, and taken responsibility. Humans had guided him only minimally, ensuring fairness, but the work had been his. He looked at the humans with gratitude and admiration. "You have taught us something important," he said quietly. "We can now manage ourselves, and we understand the value of your kindness and patience." Alex smiled. "And that is the goal. We still help, but only when fairness is respected. Respect makes kindness meaningful." Slowly, across countless worlds, the pattern repeated. Colonies managed themselves. Trade was organized fairly. Disputes were solved through cooperation. Humans remained patient, generous, and kind, but no longer taken for granted. The galaxy had learned to balance independence with collaboration. Lily reflected on the subtle impact. This is more than change, it is a transformation. Humans have reshaped the galaxy without fighting, threatening, or demanding. Fairness, boundaries, and patience have done what force never could. Alex nodded. And the results will last. Systems are stronger, leaders are wiser. Humans are respected not just for being helpful, but for being principled and strong. As the stars shimmered outside their observation window, humans felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. No fanfare, no celebration, just the deep knowledge that their presence, patience, and firm kindness had permanently reshaped the galaxy. Even the oldest colonies, which had once relied blindly on human intervention, had adapted. They managed disputes, resources, and trade themselves. Humans were no longer the automatic solution, but remained respected teachers and guides. Patience, fairness, and kindness had become universal principles. In quiet moments, Alex and Lily watched systems function independently. They saw leaders negotiate without human intervention, colonies organize efficiently, and trade flourish under balanced conditions. The galaxy had learned responsibility, respect, and cooperation. Humans had not abandoned kindness, they had strengthened it by combining it with firmness. On a remote observation deck, Alex looked at the stars. "We are no longer invisible," he said. "We are respected. The galaxy listens not because it fears us, but because it understands us." "And that is the most powerful lesson," Lily said. "Kindness matters, but respect is essential. Generosity without boundaries is wasted. Humans have taught the galaxy how to balance both." Across countless worlds, species had adapted. Disputes were no longer simple problems for humans to solve. Trade required cooperation. Colonies managed resources. Humans had set a new standard: patience, fairness, and principled kindness. The galaxy had changed forever. Even the smallest aliens, who once relied entirely on human guidance, now solved problems independently. Humans remained present, observing and advising when needed, but no longer controlling outcomes. The galaxy was stronger, fairer, and more balanced. Humans had become impossible to ignore, not through fear, but through wisdom and principle. Alex and Lily knew the transformation was complete. The galaxy was finally functioning without over-reliance on human generosity, yet humans remained central to its success. Patience and kindness, when combined with boundaries, had reshaped civilizations, trade, and diplomacy. "We have done more than we realized," Alex said softly. "We have changed the galaxy without a single battle, without raising weapons, and without demanding obedience." "And that is the most remarkable part," Lily replied. "Humans remain kind, yet they are finally respected. The galaxy has learned the value of balance, cooperation, and fairness." As the human fleet sailed through the stars, planets and colonies functioning independently yet cooperatively, Alex and Lily understood a profound truth. Humans had shown the universe that true kindness carries weight only when it is accompanied by boundaries. Patience is strength, generosity is powerful, and respect must be earned through principle. The galaxy, once chaotic and dependent on human intervention, had evolved. Species collaborated, colonies managed themselves, and trade was fair. Humans had remained kind, patient, and generous, but their refusal to be endlessly exploited had changed the course of history. In the quiet of space, Alex and Lily looked out at distant systems, reflecting on the journey. Humans had reshaped the galaxy, not through violence, fear, or domination, but through firm, principled action. The ripple of patience, fairness, and kindness extended across light years, touching every planet, colony, and species. Humans had stopped being invisible. They had stopped being endlessly exploited. The galaxy finally respected them, not for what they gave, but for what they stood for. And in that quiet, unassuming transformation, the universe changed forever. The stars shimmered, witnessing a new era. Humans remained kind, patient, and principled. The galaxy was stronger, wiser, and more balanced. And for the first time in history, humans were not just admired, they were respected, valued, and impossible to ignore. This was the moment when the galaxy learned the full power of humans. That true kindness requires boundaries, that patience carries strength, and that generosity becomes meaningful only when it is respected. Humans had stopped being nice in the old way, and the universe had changed forever.